Hello dear friends, I welcome everyone who is watching Sotnik-TV. Today is August 15th, 2020, and our weekly Saturday summary show is on. Today I've discussed the protest rally in Belarus with several experts. Despite those experts being very different, they all have one thing in common. I will name this common thing later on during the show. I had my first Skype interview for today with Dmitry Demyshkin, a politician who suffered at the hands of Russian security services numerous times. Let's begin with discussing the ongoing events in Belarus. Please evaluate what's going on there from the political perspective. Belarus is doing quite well for a post-Soviet country, and is possible for Russia. We're seeing the same kind of scenario we've always seen when dictatorships fall apart. I can't predict how long Mr. Lukashenko will stay in power. It may be days, months, or a year, but it doesn't really matter. From now on, he is using violence to stay in power, which creates a powder keg that will explode sooner or later. Someone once said it's possible to stay in power by means of bayonets, but it's impossible to sit on those bayonets for a long time. So the situation seems quite clear to me. Sooner or later, Belarusians will obtain freedom and bring their current authorities down. They will have hard times achieving this goal, and things won't get much better after they do. Still, they will get a chance to change their future, and it's worth fighting for. We all see the footage from Belarus. We see the authorities calling the protesters gangsters and thugs. That is something any authoritarian would do, still, as we see those protesters are factory workers and the citizens of Belarus. The authorities have been trying to suppress their rallies, but I'm sure that sooner or later the people are going to win. What is the chance of uniting Belarus with Russia and thus creating a new state, a new version of the USSR? The image of today's Russia is not attractive even for people inside the country, so Moscow has nothing to attract its neighbors with. Vladimir Putin is going to rule forever, but even the local citizens are less than thrilled with such an option. Okay, but what's gonna happen in case Russia moves its troops into Belarus? The worst choice Russian elites can make now is moving Russian troops into Belarus. It was Dmitry Demyshkin, a politician. Different estimates can be given to the situation in Belarus from different countries. Watching the protest from Kiev is different to watching it from Fascist Moscow. I've discussed Putin's chances of invading Belarus with Boris Tomachin, a writer who personally experienced the brutality of Putin's fascist system. He served over 10 years in a Russian prison due to political reasons. Here's my first question, Boris. Prior to the elections, Mr. Lukashenko was using some anti-Kremlin rhetoric. But yesterday he returned the mercenaries from Russian private military company back to Moscow. While today he called Mr. Putin and told him about the risk for their countries from the so-called color revolutions, inspired by the West. Is Lukashenko ready to give up on Belarus? Starting with 1996, Lukashenko has been slightly giving up on his country. He has no other options left, especially amid the recent events after which he has blood on his hands. Nobody expects him to fight for Belarus like a real national leader would do. On the other hand, it's clear that by fighting for the independence of Belarus, he's fighting for his president chair. While his country remains independent, he is the president. But if it turns into the western region of Russia, Lukashenko will become no one. Anyway, he has been giving up on his country step by step. The process is on track, but not moving as fast as it would be if Moscow managed to successfully insert its man as president, who would be more loyal to Moscow and more cooperative. As far as I know, Moscow has made many attempts to seat their desired candidate. What if Russia sends its troops into Belarus? Will those troops face the resistance of Belarusians? Lukashenko may ask for this in case of any emergency, such as a terrorist attack or something. Frankly speaking, I can't imagine why Lukashenko would need to ask for this. Mr. Lukashenko is trying to find centered choice between his obligation of playing along with Putin and his own desire to remain as independent as possible, as he remains the president by means of his independence. So I can't imagine why he would ask Putin to send troops to Belarus. On the other hand, sending troops to Belarus is something Putin might wish. Now, regarding the reaction such troops could face, the people of Belarus need to be ready to fight for their freedom. I saw some posts on the internet suggesting that people will oppose Putin's attempts of invading and eliminating their homeland. However, people need guns to oppose occupying forces. Not enough Belarusians have guns. Belarus is not the USA, and civilians here are not allowed to possess or carry weapons. People don't have guns to resist the hordes of security agents who attack them in tactical armor. People would use some guns to fight back at those agents who beat them up with truncheons. Shooting the invaders could make them back off, but nothing like this has ever happened. Is it possible that the USSR empire may be brought back? Or is it something impossible even though desired by an old dictator? As we know, Joseph Stalin wanted to rule the world too. Of course they want this, but I'm quite sure that they will fail. That was Boris Tomachin, a writer. My next guest for today is Elena Vituknovsky, a politician and author. Do you expect Vladimir Putin to provide any help to Alexander Lukashenko? What kind of help may it be? Will any troops be sent to Belarus undercover, or may a full-scale intrusion begin? Vladimir Putin seems really unstable now. He is overestimating himself and may begin the game of cat and mouse, so that no one can predict his further moves. The situation we are facing now is quite interesting. Mr. Putin has turned himself into something opposite to King Midas. Everything he touches turns nasty, while King Midas turns everything into gold. So Mr. Putin got his hands on Belarus and provoked a revolution. This story is quite interesting. Alexander Lukashenko is clearly scared. He got into the character of a dictator. He put the chill on his opponents and established a bloody regime. He had a quarter-century to develop a taste for it. Then he proceeded to radically fight against his own people. He is nothing but a clone of Mr. Putin. He is now scared for his own authority and life. So he will sure ask Putin for military assistance. And we don't know how Putin will react to this. Are the protests in Belarus able to inspire a new wave of protests in Russia? Or is Russian civil society lying dead in the cemetery of political stability? Belarus can inspire Russia, which poses a real threat for Mr. Putin. The situation reminds me of a fairy tale. Mr. Putin was the one to put up the mess he can't handle. He should have stayed out of Belarus and its inner problems. What he may get now is revolution, starting not only in Belarus, but also in Russia. People will sure get inspired by the recent events. As we see, the scenario turns unpredictable now. Even a month ago, no one could expect things would go this way. The possible future of Mr. Lukashenko is also possible for Mr. Putin, as they are similar as two peas. The situation in Belarus is less complicated, but it doesn't really change anything. That was Alina Vituknovsky, a politician and author. She has not escaped a harsh interaction with the Russian penal system in her day. As was promised before, let me now tell you what is similar for all three of my guests today. They are really different, but they all went through prisons in Mother Russia. Watch Sotnik-TV.